A couple of reasons why I decided to come to the Hildebrand Project Summer Seminar. The first is, for me, it gives me a set of intellectual tools and resources to help combat what I perceive to be as some of the anti-human ideologies that are prevalent throughout my discipline, which is English literature. And more importantly, I think it gives me a grounding in helping me to understand why, from a literary perspective, humans have a need to create literature, to create narrative, to create, and I study poetry, so to create poetry that is engaged in the process of making real, making present, a kind of lyric subjectivity. So for me, it gives me a set of intellectual tools I can use to understand my own discipline better and to give me a thicker account of why I study what I study. Personalism gives me a way, as opposed to some of the other philosophical traditions within the Christian heritage, personalism gives me a way to understand a fuller sense of the human person and the human person as a creative person. And so when I think about lyric subjectivity, I'm thinking not merely about the literary act as a purely intellectual or rational act, but it's also an effective act. It engages us not merely at the level of our intellect, but also at the level of our hearts and of our souls, I think. And so personalism gives me a way to understand and to give an account of that deep center, that deep core, that capacious center of the human reality that I think is what lyric poetry or novelistic fiction is trying to approximate toward, is trying to give us some sense of. And so that for me is why personalism makes literature sort of more real to me in some sense, I think. Probably the way in which personalist philosophy is able to integrate and to be faithful to the broader strains of the Christian philosophical and theological tradition, and to see that it really is a unity. I think before coming here, when I encountered discussions of personalism, it was always sort of bracketed off from either the Thomistic or some of the other philosophical traditions that we tend to think of in our tradition. But to come here and to see it presented as part of a unity, as part of not merely a branch of that stream, but as part of the stream itself, as sort of a deep channel within the stream, I think. That's been, I think, most useful for me, and something that I was gratified to learn, but also it kind of helps me to understand the unity of all truth, and that's been the most impressive for me, I think. I think how diverse the participants are. I was expecting, as a literature person, to come here and be surrounded by a bunch of philosophers with whom I couldn't engage in any conversations at any sort of level where either of us was really getting that much out of it. But I found that the participants have been probably, on par with the quality, the intellectual engagement I've gotten from talking to the other participants has been on par with what I've gotten in the seminar sessions. It's a diverse group of people. It's international. Every one of these people represents a diversity of backgrounds. And so, far from feeling kind of alienated from the conversations, I've been able to engage in conversations that I wouldn't be able to have with people in the academy or without. And I think it's kind of helped me to feel sort of moored to my own faith and to my own concerns as a faithful intellectual, and to kind of leave this week to go back to my research, to go back to my teaching, renewed and refreshed and restored and excited about the Christian intellectual tradition of which I'm a part. I would say come for the fellowship, come for the conversations. This has been one of the most, so far, intellectually stimulating weeks of my life. And I wish it were longer at this point, but I think the conversations you're going to have, the friendships you're going to make are just, I think, the biggest reason to come, because I feel like having been here for a week, like I'm not just leaving here, just to go back to my old life. I'm leaving here engaged in a set of conversations that I hope will continue for years to come. So I think you're becoming a part of that, not merely just sort of coming to hear some lectures and then to go your separate ways, but you're becoming a part of something. So that for me is the biggest reason to come. Again, kind of since we've been talking for the past few days about the past of Christian personalism, its foundations, its beginnings, and then looking forward to the future of it, I think that it has so much to offer. I think that the future of Christian personalism is being engaged more substantively, not only in the life of Christian philosophy, but in all the different disciplines that are represented here this week. I mean, in law and literature, and human rights. I think Christian personalism, if we're really evangelizing on behalf of the intellectual riches that it has to offer, I think it has something to say to as it should, it has something to say to every aspect of human experience. And so I'm looking forward to doing my part in helping to evangelize for that. And I think that the future of it is that we can start to bring those intellectual resources to bear more and more on all the different parts of human experience and human existence.